Imagine a third grader sitting in the school nurse's office on a Tuesday morning.
Right, a classic scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And they have this throbbing headache, their heart is pounding, and they just look genuinely miserable.
Oh, totally.
So the nurse runs through the standard protocol. The thermometer reads 98.6, no fever, no cough.
Right.
So the nurse sends them back to class, just assuming they're, I don't know, trying to get out of a math test or something.
Which happens all the time.
Right. But what if I told you that child's pain is 100% real and treating it like a standard physical bug or just a behavioral issue is one of the biggest medical blind spots in our school systems today?
It's huge. It really represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human body processes unseen threats.
Yeah.
And for you listening, we are at a point where we have to drastically shift how we view childhood sickness. I mean, we can't just look at the physical symptoms on the surface anymore.
No, not at all.
We really have to look at the mechanics of the mind-body connection because the stakes of getting this wrong are, well, they're incredibly high. If we misread the symptom, we are mistreating the child.
Wow. Yeah. And that really brings us to the core mission for this deep dive.
Right.
We are exploring the really complex intersection of student mental health and physical ailments, focusing specifically on pediatric headaches.
Exactly.
We're going to look at how a child's body processes unspoken stress, how you can decode the hidden warning signs of this, and then we're going to examine this incredibly comprehensive school-based teletherapy solution.
It's a game changer.
It really is. It's rolling out in Georgia schools right now to tackle this very problem. Okay, let's unpack this, because jumping from I'm stressed out about a math test to my head is physically throbbing with intense pain seems like, well, a massive leap.
It does seem that way, yeah.
I want to understand the actual biological mechanism here. Like, how does an emotional stressor physically manifest in a child's body?
So you really have to look at how the brain develops. I mean, as adults, when we feel overwhelmed by our environment, we have a highly developed prefrontal cortex.
Right.
And we have a vast vocabulary. We can articulate complex states, We can say, I'm experiencing severe burnout, or I feel inadequate in my job.
Yeah, we can name it.
Exactly. But children simply do not have the cognitive development or the vocabulary to name those really complex emotional states.
That makes sense.
But their amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, is still sounding the alarm.
Mm-hmm.
So when they carry stress that they don't yet have the words to name, the nervous system basically bypasses language entirely and goes straight to the physical.
Okay, so it's essentially an electrical issue. Like if you think about an electrical circuit board in a house.
Right, I like that.
If you plug too many high voltage appliances into one outlet, the circuit breaker trips to prevent a fire.
Right.
So for a child who doesn't have the emotional vocabulary to process overwhelming stress, the brain essentially trips the circuit breaker. It dumps all that excess electrical energy into physical tension in the neck and shoulders.
Yeah.
So the headache is the blown fuse.
What's fascinating here is that your circuit board analogy perfectly describes the biological cascade.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When that child is overwhelmed, the nervous system detects a threat and triggers a physiological fight-or-flight response.
Wow.
The body releases cortisol and adrenaline, blood vessels constrict, breathing becomes shallow, and crucially, muscles tighten as the body literally braces for an attack.
Just tightening up entirely.
Right. And where does a massive amount of that muscle tension pool? Right in the suboccipital muscles at the base of the skull and down the neck.
Ouch.
Yeah, clinicians call it a psychophysiological response.
So the throbbing pain they feel is the actual physical constriction of those muscles pulling on their skull.
Mm-hmm.
Like the blown fuse is causing real damage.
Yes. The mind is just completely overwhelmed by the electrical load, so the body physically takes on the burden of sounding the alarm.
Which really forces us to look at the practical reality of this for, well, anyone interacting with kids.
Absolutely.
If we understand the mechanism of a psychophysiological headache, how do we identify it in the wild? I mean, kids get regular physical viruses all the time.
They do.
How do parents or teachers actually spot the difference?
So the primary rule, and this is completely non-negotiable in pediatric care, is that a proper diagnosis must start with a rigorous medical rule-out.
Okay.
You have to take the child to a pediatrician to ensure there isn't an underlying neurological issue, or maybe a vision problem requiring glasses, or a chronic physical illness.
Oh, you have to check the physical hardware first.
You check the hardware first, exactly. But once a clinician gives the all clear medically and the headaches are still happening, that's when the detective work shifts.
Got it.
That is when you stop looking for a virus and start looking for systemic patterns. The timing of the pain is your biggest clue.
Like when it happens.
Yeah. Does the child wake up feeling totally fine on Saturday but suddenly develop a migraine on Sunday night?
Ah, the Sunday scaries.
Right. Or do the headaches conveniently flare up right before transition period, like the first week of middle school, or right before standardized testing? A biological virus doesn't check the academic calendar before it attacks. Stress does.
Wow, that is such a good point.
Hmm.
And our sources noted that stress usually doesn't travel alone either. You should be looking for specific clusters of symptoms.
Yes, the nervous system rarely isolates its distress to just one area.
Right.
If those timed headaches are consistently paired with stomach aches, or unusual fatigue, or sudden trouble sleeping, you are looking at a nervous system in full systemic distress. It's a widespread alarm, not a localized bug.
Wait, I need to play devil's advocate here for, like, every parent and teacher listening.
Sure.
Because we have all known kids, or maybe we were those kids, who magically developed a stomach ache or a headache when it was time to do chores or take a test.
Oh, of course.
How are we differentiating this genuine psychophysiological response from a kid who just learned that clutching their forehead gets them a free pass to the nurse's office?
Look, it is the most common pushback from educators and parents, and understandably so.
Yeah.
But if the pain isn't faked, then punishing the student or handing out ibuprofen doesn't solve the root issue. The engine is still overheating.
Right.
We have to understand that the physical tension we just discussed is genuine. When a child is terrified of failing a math test, their heart rate actually spikes. Their jaw genuinely clenches.
Wow.
That creates a very real, very painful tension headache.
So even if the catalyst is just a math test, the pain in their head isn't an act. The muscle constriction is actually happening.
Yes. The key isn't doubting the child's pain or accusing them of lying. It's recognizing that the pain is the symptom of an unmanaged stressor.
Okay.
If we just dismiss them as a faker and force them back into the stressful environment without tools, we are invalidating real physical pain and guaranteeing that the circuit breaker will keep tripping.
Which brings us to how we actually intervene. If we know the pain is real, and we know it's caused by the nervous system misfiring, how do we fix the circuit board?
Right.
Because handing a 10-year-old an aspirin every morning doesn't teach them how to handle a math test.
Aspirin treats the symptom, not the root. The highly encouraging news from our clinical sources is that psychophysiological conditions are remarkably treatable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, through evidence-based cognitive care, specifically modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT and biofeedback.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Looking through these treatment protocols, the medical approach completely flips.
It does.
They aren't treating the child's head at all. They're treating the child's mind to fix the head.
Exactly. They are reprogramming how the child's brain perceives and reacts to threats.
Wow.
CBT, for instance, helps a child identify the catastrophic thought patterns that are triggering their stress response. Like, a child might be thinking, if I fail this test, my parents will be furious and I'll never get into college.
Which is huge for a kid.
Exactly. CBT helps them break down that massive, overwhelming thought into something manageable, which basically stops the amygdala from firing the alarm in the first place.
Well, wait, I understand the theory of something like biofeedback, but realistically, how are you getting a third grader to sit still and care about their physiological metrics when they are actively terrified of school?
That's a fair question.
I mean, that sounds incredibly abstract for a kid.
It sounds abstract until you see how it's actually applied. Biofeedback for children is heavily gamified and highly visual.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They might put a small heart rate monitor on the child's finger and connect it to a screen showing, say, a hot air balloon.
Right.
And the child is told, make the balloon float higher.
Wow.
But the only way the balloon goes up is if their heart rate goes down.
That is so cool.
So they have to actively practice deep breathing and muscle relaxation to move the object on the screen. It takes the invisible mind-body connection and makes it completely visible and interactive for them. They literally see how their calming thoughts physically change their body in real time.
Oh, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
You're giving them a tangible, visual representation of their own internal control.
Exactly.
Once they know how to lower their heart rate to move the balloon, they can use that exact same breathing technique while sitting at their desk before the math test.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the beauty of treating these headaches with CBT and biofeedback is that you are building lifelong infrastructure.
Right.
You aren't just putting out the fire of a Tuesday morning headache. You are giving that child foundational emotional regulation skills.
That they can use forever.
Exactly. When they learn how to manually calm their nervous system at age 10, they take those physical coping tools with them into the intense pressures of high school, into college exams, into their adult careers. It is a lifelong intervention masquerading as headache relief.
Which is an incredible outcome.
Yeah.
But looking at this, it brings up a massive logistical wall.
Oh, for sure.
These clinical therapies are brilliant in theory, but think about the reality for most families trying to access them. You have to find a therapist who actually specializes in pediatric CDT.
Which is hard enough.
Right. And then hope they have an opening on a wait list that is usually months long. Pull your kid out of school in the middle of a Tuesday, drive across town, sit in the waiting room, and then drive them back.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
That is a massive operational burden on parents who are working full-time, and it pulls the kid out of the very educational environment they need to be in.
The traditional clinical model is a major barrier. It simply isn't built for the realities of modern family schedules or school attendance requirements.
No.
And it is exactly why so many of these psychophysiological symptoms go completely untreated. The logistics basically defeat the intervention.
Which makes this the perfect time to look at the systemic solution currently disrupting that old model. Enter MentalSpace School.
Yes.
This is a comprehensive K-12 mental health support system rolling out across Georgia schools, and it completely bypasses that logistical wall.
It inverts the delivery system entirely. Instead of forcing the student to leave their environment to go find the therapy, MentalSpace School brings the therapy directly into the student's natural environment.
That's huge.
They provide same-day teletherapy during the school day.
But logistically, how does that actually work? Like, how does a middle schooler log into a private therapy session between second period science and lunch without the entire hallway knowing their business?
It requires deep integration with the school's daily operations.
Okay.
The school set up designated private telehealth spaces, maybe an unused office or a partitioned room in the counseling center.
Right.
When a student is having a crisis or has a scheduled session, they get a discrete pass, go to the private room, and log on with their dedicated therapist. The student gets the intervention they need in real time, and 20 minutes later, they're walking back into their classroom.
Wow. And the sources emphasize that they assign dedicated therapist teams to each individual school, which seems critical.
It's extremely critical.
The student isn't just talking to a random call center. They are talking to a licensed professional who actually knows their school's culture.
Yes, because familiarity builds trust. The students and the staff get to know their specific therapy team, and they employ a diverse roster of culturally competent therapists.
That's so important.
It really is. When a child is trying to articulate unspoken, deeply personal stress, sitting across a screen from someone who actually understands their cultural context and background makes a profound difference in the clinical outcome.
They also handle a very specific legislative hurdle for school administrators in Georgia, don't they?
Yes, they do.
MentalSpace specifically helps schools meet the looming July 2026 deadline for HB 268 compliance.
Exactly.
For anyone who isn't tracking state education law, HB 268 is a major mandate requiring public schools to have specific, actionable mental health and emergency protocols in place.
It's a lot of work.
It's a massive logistical headache for administrators to build that infrastructure from scratch. But this system essentially acts as a plug-and-play solution to satisfy that mandate, while also maintaining strict IPA and FERPA compliance.
That privacy compliance is critical. IPA governs the privacy of medical records, and FERPA governs the privacy of educational records.
Oh, right, the two big ones.
Doing medical interventions inside a school building creates a highly complex overlap of those two privacy laws. MentalSpace manages that secure infrastructure so the school doesn't have to become an expert in medical data security overnight.
That's brilliant.
It protects the student's privacy and completely shields the district from liability.
That makes a lot of sense. It's covering the legal and the medical bases simultaneously.
Exactly.
But I have to ask the obvious question that every parent or school board member is screaming right now.
I know what you're going to ask.
Mental health care is notoriously expensive. We are talking about same-day teletherapy, dedicated clinical teams, crisis intervention, suicide prevention, and family counseling. How on earth do schools and families afford this?
Well, when you look at the actual billing structure for MentalSpace, the traditional barrier to entry practically vanishes. If a family is a Medicaid patient, their out-of-pocket cost is exactly $0.
Wait, wow, $0.
$0.
That completely changes the landscape for lower-income families who historically get completely left out of specialized pediatric care.
It completely levels the playing field. And for families not on Medicaid, they have built the infrastructure to accept a massive range of major insurances.
Oh, that's great.
The system processes claims through Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, United Healthcare, Humana, Peach State, CareSource, and Amerigroup.
So pretty much everyone.
Exactly. By accepting that wide range of commercial and state insurance and combining it with on-campus access, they are making clinical care both geographically and financially accessible to nearly the entire student body.
So the kid whose circuit breaker trips on a Tuesday morning doesn't have to wait 3 months to see a specialist. The parents don't have to take a day off work to drive them, and they aren't hit with massive out-of-pocket fees.
Nope.
They just go down the hall, log on, get their nervous system regulated, and go back to class.
The intervention meets the child exactly where the crisis is happening.
We've explored the physiological problem. We've broken down how clinical treatments actually work, and we've looked at the logistics of this school-based delivery method.
Right.
To bring this whole thing together, I want to look at the actual data.
Because theories and logistics are only valuable if they produce clinical outcomes.
Exactly. When you look at the actual outcomes of this teletherapy model in the sources, the metrics are striking. They report an 85% family satisfaction rate, which is great.
That is great.
But the two numbers that stand out are a 92% reduction in student anxiety and an 89% improvement in attendance.
Incredible numbers.
So what does this all mean? As someone who pores over educational data, seeing a 92% reduction in anxiety is practically unheard of for a systemic intervention.
It really is.
And what's crucial is how that tracks linearly to the attendance improvement. They aren't just making kids feel emotionally better, they are literally keeping them in the building.
Yes. The numbers validate the entire mechanism we've been discussing today. That 89% improved attendance rate is the direct result of curing those mystery morning headaches.
Wow.
When you use CBT and biofeedback to reduce a child's anxiety by 92%, you are turning down the voltage on that overwhelmed circuit board.
Right.
When the electrical load drops, the circuit breaker stops tripping. The physical headache disappears. By treating the mind, they are literally curing the body, preventing the student from going to the nurse's office and keeping them at their desk.
It is the ultimate preventative care. And for anyone in Georgia who wants to explore the logistics of this specific program for their own school district or their family, the sources provided 2 direct contact points.
Yes, definitely worth checking out.
You can find their complete programmatic breakdown online at mentalspaceschool.com, or you can reach out to their team directly via email at mentalspaceschool@mentalisththerapy.com.
It's just a prime example of building an intervention around the realities of a child's life rather than forcing the child to adapt to the medical system.
It really is.
Yeah.
So to recap the ground we've covered with you today, we started by looking under the hood of the nervous system to see how unspoken, unprocessed stress in a child doesn't just evaporate.
Right, it transforms.
It transforms into genuine, measurable physical tension, like a pediatric headache. We learned that the pain isn't an act, it's a blown fuse.
Exactly.
We explored how therapies like CBT and biofeedback give kids the literal tools to lower their own heart rates and rewrite their stress responses. And finally, we saw how Georgia's MentalSpace School is dismantling the traditional logistical and financial walls by bringing fully covered same-day teletherapy directly into the school building.
It forces a major perspective shift, and I really want to leave you, the listener, with this thought to mull over. We've focused heavily on tension headaches today as the primary physical symptom of unmanaged stress. But if a child's unnamed anxiety can cause a very real physical headache that keeps them out of school, and if treating their mind can cure their body, well, what other common physical childhood ailments like chronic stomach aches, sudden lethargy, unexplained nausea might actually just be a hidden cry for mental health support that we've been completely misinterpreting all along?
Oh, wow. That entirely changes the way you look at a kid complaining about a stomachache before a big test, doesn't it?
It really does.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking beneath the surface, and we will catch you next time.